Hi, want to hear me talk about a 4.5-year-old psychological horror game for 10 minutes? Welcome to the party. Okay, so I'm going to start this off by saying this isn't going to be an exactly happy video, so I'll handle the warnings now as some of it could be triggering and or upsetting to some individuals. Suicide and self-harm, depression and anxiety, trauma, disturbing imagery, self-imposed social isolation, mentions of human trafficking, and cults. While this is a very heavy video and handles very dark and mature themes, I believe that it is crucial to be fully transparent and honest about the details of the game. If I were to sugarcoat it, this video would not be as impactful and interesting as I want it to be. I will be covering the representation of PTSD in Omori and comparing the experience of the main character, Sunny, and my own experience with PTSD. Please be aware of these warnings, and remember, if anything gets too upsetting or triggering, you can always come back later. This video isn't going anywhere. Now, without further ado, this is my analysis of the portrayal of PTSD in Sunny from the game Omori. Okay, so first off, let's go over the diagnostic criteria for PTSD as stated in the DSM-5. PTSD in the DSM-5 is diagnosed when an individual has been exposed to a traumatic event and experiences a range of symptoms for over a month. The criteria is exposure to trauma, direct witnessing or learning about trauma, intrusion symptoms, flashbacks, nightmares, etc., avoidance, avoiding reminders of the trauma, negative mood and cognitions, guilt, detachment, inability to remember details, etc., arousal symptoms, hypervigilance, irritability, and sleep disturbances. Symptoms must cause significant distress or impairment in functioning in order for PTSD to be diagnosed. Within the game, Sunny expresses at least one of the above symptoms in all categories. I've made up a list explaining all of them. 1. Self-isolation. 2. Shows little to no emotion externally. 3. Complex inner world to hide trauma through dissociation. 4. Hallucinations of Sister Mari. 5. Inner persona and inner creations of past friends to hide memories of trauma. 6. Commits suicide in 2 endings. 7. Most of the game unable to go into Mari's room, the piano room, and the storage closet. 8. When outside, hallucinations of inner world, warped sense of reality. When combating fears, hallucinates Mari's voice. And 10. When feels like being watched at all times by what's called something and sees it both inner world and outside. Now let's break down each point in more detail. Part 1. Self-isolation. I believe it's the most prominent symptom Sunny expresses. It is explicitly stated at the incident. Damn it. I haven't gone over the incident. Okay, here we go. When Sunny was 12 years old, he and his older sister Mari, 16 years old, got into an argument in which Sunny, in a fit of rage, pushed Mari down the stairs, killing her on impact. Sunny, in complete horror and shock as to what he'd done, went to go make sure Mari was okay, not processing that she was dead until his best friend, Basil, also 12 years old, came over to see Sunny. As he walked in, he witnessed Sunny push Mari and, in a panic, helped Sunny stage the murder as a suicide. Basil dragged Mari's lifeless body outside, and Sunny went to go grab the jump rope. As Sunny came outside with the jump rope, Basil got Sunny to help him hold up Mari's body in order to make the illusion of Mari having hung herself. When Basil and Sunny were leaving, Sunny turned back to see one of Mari's lifeless eyes open with some of her hair dangling in front of her face, creating a truly horrifying scene which would manifest as Sunny's visual hallucinations of his sister and use as an image of how he perceives his trauma. Okay, back to the first point. Self-isolation is such a present symptom that Sunny presents that it literally affects which route you end up taking depending on the choices you make. When Kel goes to your house to ask you to go outside, if you choose to stay inside and not leave your house, you get a bad ending after some story that ends with Sunny killing himself in his sleep. But before that, Sunny begins seeing himself as his inner persona, Omori. Like, self-isolation ties into the name of the game. The name Omori stems from the Japanese term hikikomori, which roughly translates to meaning a shut-in. A hikikomori will not leave their house, won't talk to anyone, will struggle to take care of themselves and eat. Even if the name of the game shows signs towards self-isolation, then it must be important to the game and the main character. Part 2. Sunny struggles with expressing emotion, but especially positive ones. This is one of the main symptoms that psychologists will look into when diagnosing PTSD, as it is one of the most visible symptoms in most individuals with the disorder. This is shown extremely well, I'd say, from my own experience, almost perfectly. I'd say this because there are moments where Sunny will express emotion, but when he does, it is extremely explosive, and in most cases within the game can end in him hallucinating or harming himself or others. I say this is also one of Sunny's most prominent character traits throughout the game. This is because Sunny is a silent protagonist. This means that Sunny doesn't actually speak. He makes decisions, but he does not speak a word throughout the entire game, ignoring the good ending bonus scene, of course. Part 3. Sunny's complex inner world to hide trauma. This is such a crucial part of how the game and story play out that it even goes into how the game works. Majority of the game takes place in Sunny's inner world, as this is where Sunny begins to process his trauma and or continue to dissociate even more severely, which leads into an ending where he, unsurprisingly, kills himself. In my opinion, the way that Headspace is utilized is perfect. As somebody with a dissociative disorder and a character rediscovering their trauma through internal visualization and having that internal battle between what's real, what's fake, what Sunny goes through in his headspace, especially black space is the interpretation of a person's subconscious, and in Sunny's case, it's also the representation of suppressed memories. Black space is so nuanced and so complex, and honestly, it's beautiful. It's disturbing and emotional, but honestly, I find it to be an extremely relatable and comforting part of the game. It feels so real, and it's amazing. Anyway, moving on to the next point. Part 4. Sunny hallucinations of Mari. Okay, so in this section, I'm going to be talking about something more personal. So, I'm just going to put that out there. So be respectful. So the way Sunny experiences hallucinations is so beautifully done and so accurate that I honestly can't express how much I appreciate Omocat and the rest of the development team for it. I believe that the way Sunny is outwardly shown to experience hallucinations is very well done. I think the way Sunny sees his phobias and guilt is very well done. In the clips playing right now, you can see Sunny literally fighting his fears. And on top of that, the way Sunny discovers coping mechanisms being through even more hallucinations is actually very well done in comparison to my own experience of having auditory hallucinations of past friends and, unfortunately, past abusers. Sunny finding his coping mechanisms being through auditory hallucinations of Mari's comforting words from before she died is so just real. And this also ties into the fifth part. Part 5. Sunny's inner persona and inner creations of friends to hide his trauma. This is another very key part of the game that honestly helps him process his trauma. Honestly, I feel like people don't process how often this happens to real people with trauma, and especially people who suffer from dissociative amnesia. I wish people could understand that me, a real person, experiences the same thing and have since I was a kid. The way that the game interprets and handles these inner personas or inner interpretations of past friends is so freaking amazing to me. I see myself so heavily in Sunny partially because of this trait. I believe that the way he uses his inner persona of his friends to hide his trauma and to double down on the fact that things have changed is amazing, and honestly kind of reminds me of an autistic behavior, but this isn't a video about that, so let's move on to the next point. Part 6. Sunny commits suicide in 2 endings. So going forward with this point, I'm going to emphasize yet again content warning for suicide and self-harm. So I believe the fact that out of 2 out of the 4 endings possible end with Sunny committing suicide speaks volumes for how significant and intense Sunny's symptoms are. The reason he ends up killing himself in those endings is due to him not accepting his trauma and letting it consume him, and in the end, his trauma literally ends up being the very thing that kills him. From my experience as someone who experiences these same symptoms and the same mindset is honestly so tragic and sad. And honestly, again, amazing how well this is done by Omaka and the rest of the development team behind Omori. This also ties into not only my experience, but the literal DSM-5. It is expressly stated that individuals with PTSD have a higher likelihood of committing suicide and developing a self-harm addiction. And even beyond the suicide piece, it is heavily implied that Sunny struggles with a self-harm addiction, or at the very least, also struggles with self-harm in some way. So I think that this is a very good point that expresses not only Sunny having PTSD, but also I believe that it's showing Sunny how he views himself. To me, it reminds me of how I feel like I should punish myself for my past traumas and try to handle the guilt I feel. This is also what I believe to be how Sunny sees himself. Part 7. Most of the game, Sunny is unable to go into any room related to the incident and Mari. Throughout the entire game, Sunny not only has a massive fear of his stairs, but he refuses to go into the storage closet, the piano room, Mari's room, and hell, even his freaking treehouse. Honestly, the fact that Sunny straight up refuses to go into these rooms and areas of the game is so relatable. I relate to it so much. It is one of the things I relate to the most from Sunny. In my experience, I avoid things even somewhat related to my trauma, even something as simple as a color, a car brand, even going into things like apartments. One thing that just really gets me and something that always brings me to tears is that the very first time after the incident that Sunny can go into his backyard is after he's rebonded with his friends. He can go back there. He can only ever go back there, actually, because of his friends. And that just makes me feel so much envy and empathy. I wish people would acknowledge that more, and just how brave it makes not only Sunny, but the whole group, as it affected not just him, but everybody. Part 8. When Sunny is outside, he hallucinates stuff from his inner world. This is mainly shown in the first 2 times you go into the real world, as Sunny still cannot fully understand what's happened for years in his mind is just that, in his mind. When he sees things relating to Mari or his childhood, he visually hallucinates the objects around it to be their headspace alternatives. This is meant to be Sunny's brain's way of protecting him, and this is a more uncommon behavior for the brain to exhibit. However, it is still a very real thing to happen, especially to individuals who suffer from PTSD. In my experience, visual hallucinations only happen during flashbacks. However, this isn't always the case for people with PTSD as expressed via Sunny. Actually, now that I think about it, though, when I was more freshly out of my situation, I had many visual hallucinations. Mine mainly created threats around me instead of trying to protect it like they do with Sunny. However, both experiences are valid. Part 9. When combating fears, spiders, drowning, heights, the dark, falling hair, Sunny hallucinates Mari's voice. Throughout the game, there are moments where Sunny will literally fight his fears, as in the clips being shown right now. This is due to the fact that Sunny only believes that he should be allowed to heal himself if he, at the same time, reminds himself of his biggest regret, killing Mari. I believe that the reason he does this is heavily related to PTSD, as it implies persistent feelings of guilt and a need to punish oneself for their trauma. I relate quite heavily to this one as someone who has seen horrible acts done on others in front of me. I have this constant need when triggered to remind myself of the other children in that room in order to punish myself for surviving, and I wholeheartedly believe that this is what Sunny is doing in these fights to some extent. Not only that, but the things he's hearing Mari say are all things that she said to him during the Spider Lake drowning incident that manifested most of his fears to comfort him afterwards. It is due to these things I believe this is one of the most impactful symptoms Sunny expresses within the game. Part 10. Sunny feels like he's being watched at all times by what's called something and sees it both inner world and outside. This is the most obvious symptom that he expresses, and it is one of, if not the most important storytelling tools that this game uses. This something is a representation of the last time Sunny saw Mari during the incident, when he turned back to look at her only to see her dangling hair over her face with only a single eye visible. This is something that is not the representation of not only the last time Mari was seen by Sunny, but it's also a representation of the guilt that Sunny feels. Something follows around Sunny everywhere. In Black Space, it will try and lure Sunny to it by mimicking Mari. There's also a fight against something in which it will drag Sunny deeper and deeper into his mind, eventually bringing him to the border between his dream headspace and the deep, chaotic area of his mind, Black Space. Black Space, as mentioned before, is the representation of Sunny's subconscious and his repressed memories. Black Space is disorganized, messy, and raw, whereas Sunny's dreamland headspace is scripted and organized, only showing Sunny what he wants to see, what he wants to have happened in the real world. Black Space is one of the most complex parts of Sunny's mind, as it is where all his guilt and repressed trauma lies. During the final moments of the game, when the truth is revealed to Sunny, it takes place in Black Space. It takes place in the one area of his mind Sunny has no access to in the 4 years he's isolated himself. During the Sunday's ending, Sunny is shown to be bleeding, his fingers getting cut off as he remembers. He'll go down a road full of memories with his friends and Mari before the incident, and in the end, Sunny fights Omori. Omori's dialogue in this fight hits me right where it hurts as someone with survivor's guilt. Omori says, "You've caused so much suffering, yet you do nothing, and so you will get nothing in return. Your friends will never forgive you. They'll abandon you like you did them, and that's what you deserve. You tell yourself you don't want to burden others, but the truth is you're selfish. You just don't want people to rely on you. When do you think of others? How long are you going to let people take care of you? You say you care, but you're a liar. You've never done anything for anyone else. You're useless. Less than useless. You're sick. People like you don't deserve to live. Your friends are wrong about you. The person they love isn't you at all. You let them believe a lie to protect yourself. You're nothing but a liar, and when they see the truth, they'll hate you just as much as you hate yourself. If they know the truth, you'll never be able to regain their trust. No matter what you do, it'll be hopeless. All you do is make things worse. It would be better to just die. It would be better to just die. You killed Mari. She loved you and you killed her. Kel loved her and you killed her. Aubrey loved her and you killed her. Hero loved her and you killed her. Basil loved her and you killed her. You loved her and you killed her. You should just die." These lines of dialogue go in order as to what Omori tells Sunny. This is what Sunny's mind and what Sunny's subconscious is telling him. And honestly, as someone who has been in very similar situations to Sunny, I can attest to this. My mind tells me these things as well, being reminded that the other people loved them, that they died in front of me, being told by my own mind that I should just die is something so common. It's practically my brain's default response to any form of mistake, any form of seeing people get hurt near me. In these final moments, Sunny learns to let go and accept his trauma. He begins to accept that it happened and that the only way to set himself and Basil free of the guilt that haunts them is to tell the truth. Is to tell Kel, Aubrey, and Hero what really happened that day, the day Mari died. We don't get to see their reactions, but that isn't what's important. What's important is that Sunny is no longer running away from his trauma. He's no longer trying to pretend it never happened. He's acknowledging it not only for himself, but also for the sake of the people that he cares most for. Thank you for listening to this. I hope that it was impactful and educational in some way. Now, please sit back and enjoy one of the most impactful pieces of music in all of video games. Thank you.